This is Mary Sims, only moments away from blowing out the candles on her 43rd birthday cake. Help! Already 6 pounds down on her latest diet attempt, we all knew it was a very well-deserved piece of cake.
Just roll her over. Somebody 1, 2, 3.
Because after years of bad diets, a bad divorce, a bad diagnosis, and well, just a lot of bad days, her family was just so happy to see her finally having a good one. In fact, it finally appeared, for the first time in years, that everything was, well, perfect. Which is why if you're over 40 or more than 10, 20, or 50 plus pounds past your healthiest weight like Mary was, it's absolutely critical that you pay close attention, because a Nobel Prize winning 1.7 second solution, the same one Mary barely missed, has now been proven to work better than originally promised by over 88,000 weight loss resistant men and women just like you, who all used a sunrise fat loss doubling reset to lose over 2.5 million pounds in the last 6 months alone. From diabetic single mothers like Judy to arthritis-stricken grandmothers like Sarah, even 78-year-old great-grandfathers like George, as well as 300-pound plus dads like Tate. Average everyday Joes and Janes who had every odd stacked against them, people no different from you, who all realized that a simple, single-second morning reboot has the power to rewire and reawaken your God-given and now scientifically proven 22-hour-a-day weight loss magnification system without diet and exercise. In fact, you may even be a little annoyed when you find out that your solution has been hiding in plain sight all along, and that in the time it takes for you to set your alarm in the morning, you too could be awakening Mother Nature's most powerful fat loss doubling enzyme that lays dormant in even the most stubborn metabolism. And that all it takes is a mere 1.7 seconds. But I can also guarantee you'll also be more than annoyed, frustrated, maybe even feel betrayed when you find out the real root cause behind uncontrollable weight gain. The true villain in this equation has actually been masquerading as your so-called hero for the last 50 years. That's right, no longer can these empty devils blame carbs, processed foods, or your lack of discipline or exercise for the numbers on your scale or that reflection you see in the mirror that you no longer recognize. Because as you'll see in the next minute, it's them who've not only been robbing us of our confidence, along with that reflection we all have a God-given right to, but saturating ourselves with tactics that steal years, and in many cases, decades off the end of our lives as well. You'll also see that a deeper look, one through a microscope, reveals a covert diet-induced cellular apocalypse that's inflicted biological damage inside 9 out of every 10 North American men and women. And as you saw with Mary, has been hammering tiny nails into our metabolism, as well as our coffins, with literal and long-lasting force with each failed weight loss attempt. And believe me, I know this all sounds pretty bleak, but if you look closely, there is a flicker of light at the end of the tunnel. An evolution-tested and unrivaled metabolic resurrection sequence, glowing with such hope-inspiring brilliance for even the most crippled metabolism, that doctors around the world are celebrating, now calling this single-second morning reset the most critically important metabolic breakthrough of the 21st century. As you can probably imagine, this once-in-a-generation rare breakthrough wasn't some skinny tea or DVD, a detox, or the next fad diet. It's not a cleanser or cream because, well, because they don't hand out Nobel Prizes for things like that, do they? That's right. Science and medicine's highest honors, along with now over 88,000 people looking for one last shot, have proven that an all but once forgotten, all natural and flawlessly designed fat loss doubling sequence built by Mother Nature herself still has the power to install relentless immunity while resurrecting your teenage metabolism, proving it doesn't matter how much weight's engulfed your figure over the last few years or decades, or if every diet, workout, supplement, drug, or doctor's failed you as you helplessly watch 20, 30, 50, or even 100 pounds saturate your figure and wring out what's left of your self-esteem. Because now, 88,487 people just like you have proven it works better than originally promised by erasing over 2.5 million pounds, refueled by Mother Nature's most powerful metabolic gift, now breathing a life of evergreen abundance inside the body they deserve. I'll tell you what it is and how to naturally, and as you'll see almost effortlessly, activate it without a bite of diet food or drop of sweat, I'll show you what the next few weeks and months of your life are guaranteed to look like by scientific law, and of course, I'll tell you who the heck I am in a second. But first, all you really need to know is that all those thousands of pounds lost, that's really just one of the perks to this whole thing. Because falling in love with the way you look and feel is really just a pleasant and well-deserved bonus to not only getting to tell your story for a couple decades longer, but literally redefining the one you are living right now with the people who live, love, and depend on you. Especially those little people, like these two little girls, whose mother was once sentenced to a 6% chance of survival, yet would go on to shock her physicians so profoundly that her recovery and her cure have proven that you, or even a 230-pound woman just shook by a thunderclap heart attack, are literally only one link in the chain away from reassembling your metabolism and claiming the body, the immunity, the health, the happiness, and the life each one of us has a God-given right to. That's right, while a higher power blessed Mary Sims and her family with the gift of salvation instead of suffering that day, a 1.7-second solution perfected by Mother Nature, now certified by medicine's highest honors, granted her a second chance to not only blow out the candles on her next birthday cake, but to do it all within a body that had voluntarily automated 92 pounds of fat for incineration in the shortest time possible, allowing a woman who once found herself literally dying in her brother's arms to make one of the most unexpected recoveries and awe-inspiring transformations ever seen. Her entire journey unfolded in the blink of an eye. Her friends, her family, her co-workers, and even her doctor stared in disbelief as they watched Mary, a woman once plagued by depression, multiple sclerosis, and heart disease, suddenly running around with the elation-infused energy of an 8-year-old. Then that's the other thing. The food she ate along the way looked something like an 8-year-old would eat as well. Pizza, pasta, ice cream. And of course, all those trips to the Cheesecake Factory, all that food, well, it didn't stand a chance against her new 400 horsepower metabolism because instead of restriction, Mary's single-second practice finally gave her metabolism unchallenged permission to work at lightning speed, which not only safely programmed those 92 pounds for incineration in a record time, but allowed her, and soon you, to finally take a permanent and well-deserved vacation from this, and especially this. Just think of how you would look. Just think of how the rest of your life could look if by the end of today, you dropped the dumbbells and ditched diets forever and instead took under 2 seconds each morning to reinstate Mother Nature's most powerful fat loss flood. The same one we've simply pushed aside for the last 5 decades, yet has the power to swiftly and, of course, gently trigger an all-day surge of immunity multiplication enzymes with a sworn duty to defend against obesity and disease at all costs. You could literally be having your cake and eat it too, and it's easy as 1, 2, well, no, that's it. I've seen it almost 100,000 times now in the last 4 months alone. From energy-deprived, blue-collar guys and gals like Terry, Tracy, and Carl, to stress-filled physicians like Dr. Young or surgeons like Dr. Burke, who not only watch their coveralls, suits, belts, and scrubs loosen in record time while putting cheat meals on their daily menu, but clinically cheated the aging process as well by unlocking Mother Nature's very own youth restoration sequence that, like for you, once lay dormant inside them too, right about here. And I understand, although you've had an eyewitness seat to Mary's transformation and a glimpse into the newly restored lives of thousands, if you've still got your guard up or this somehow sounds far-fetched, I get that. They've had just over 50 years to sharpen their dangerously persuasive marketing weapons, conditioning you and I to believe that the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is paved with deprivation and pain. But when you take a second to bridge science with common sense, or even a quick look through the history books, any skepticism is quickly replaced by absolute certainty when you realize that every generation on record, especially these people, the leanest, healthiest, and happiest generation in human history, they didn't hand their money over to Jenny Craig, Beachbody, Weight Watchers, or Dr. Bernstein. To look like this, he didn't have to hire a trainer, and she didn't ever have to diet because, because diets didn't really even exist in 1960. They didn't need to. Why would they? This generation was still activating Mother Nature's most potent metabolic gift on a daily basis, allowing them to eat and drink pretty much whatever they wanted, without any of the guilt or confidence-stripping penalties that you or I would suffer. Strange, right? Well, Not really, and like a key sliding into a lock, everything is about to make perfect sense, especially when you realize this same effortless act that almost all of us now skip on a daily basis is actually the same one closely guarded by today's fittest, leanest, and most disease-resistant people en route to living their metabolically privileged 100-year lives. And like I said before, you'll definitely be more than annoyed when you realize they convinced you to abandon an elementary task that holds the key to literally every aspect of weight loss and longevity. The same 1.7 second solution I'll be handing over to you in the next 2 minutes. And if not now, I guarantee you'll soon be replacing doubt with excitement. Because this time, as every piece of the puzzle begins to fall effortlessly into place, and as the mirror quickly becomes your friend for the first time in years, or well, maybe even ever, you'll see the new you begin to emerge. One who stares back, emotionally, aesthetically, and now clinically verifying what medicine's highest honors, and now 88,487 people like you have already proven that even on your worst day, you are still your own best chance. The same chance that's allowed fathers, mothers, sisters, daughters, and of course, little brothers like me to finally get their person back. I'm Merrick Scott, and well, on that day, I was no more than a shell-shocked brother wondering if his sister would see another day. And the truth is, I was scared to death because after 20 years in the fields of health sciences, human performance, and ethically driven weight loss, backed by a list of accolades and credentials within the fields of functional medicine and health sciences, I had a pretty clear picture of the trauma being unleashed within my sister's heart that afternoon. See, 3 weeks before Mary's heart attack, her daughter, who like most 12-year-old girls captures every waking moment on her phone, had found her mom kneeling by her bedside, examining a picture of a woman she barely recognized. That morning, Mary had been brought to her knees by the before picture she once hoped would transition into the after picture deceitfully promised by her latest diet. I mean, put yourself in Mary's shoes for a second, because I'm sure like your story, Mary's didn't start out this way either. Once the apple of every boy's eye in high school, Mary had been blessed with a pinup figure fueled by hummingbird metabolism, yet now, even the girl voted most likely to go to the Olympics had suffered a fate that's become all too familiar for almost 87% of people like you and I. You know how it is, the freedom of youth is exchanged for the 9-to-5 grind. Nights out with the guys and girls are replaced by all-nighters nursing babies, and now, with Mary herself replaced by a younger, more slender woman, she had been left alone to sort through the rubble of what remained of her life. And like most of us in her time of need, searching for just a single win, Mary turned to the same empty devil we all know too well.
How would you like amazing results like these?
Upper body and legs and cardio.
You'll lose 5 pounds in your first week.
The same so-called solution that had tricked her roughly 32 times in the past. And granted, the number of diets you've trusted may be a little bit more or a little bit less, but the data shows if you're over 40, you'll have already spent 17 years of your life chasing their empty keto, fasting, and low-carb promises that always, in some way, end in defeat. But here's a little secret. Mary didn't use a single one of them. Not one of those traditional, tired, and often dangerous schemes that steals years from the end of your life with each attempt. Well, the best part is, by taking the next minute to expose the holes in their armor, you'll not only be fortifying your own, but you'll realize that a 1.7 second fat loss doubling shortcut, again, now proven to work by Nobel Prize-winning science, and now over 88,000 people, has been hiding in plain sight. It's been right in front of you all along. Because really, like I said, the only weapon you need, the only weapon you've ever needed, the same solution that's about to grant you an all-access, unlimited lifetime path to the leanest, healthiest, happiest, and longest-lasting life you deserve, well, it's been sleeping inside you. Inside all of us as we speak. I'm talking about those 4 billion cells equipped with one very special program. One that is supposed to be running on a second-by-second basis, enjoyed and utilized by every generation until ours. Nature's own self-propelling disease and obesity defense system, holistically engineered to uphold the highest standard of immunity while defending your healthiest weight at all costs. It's actually initiated by a habit so simple, the same one I'm about to hand over to you in a second, that these people initiated it on a daily basis without ever really knowing they were doing it, and eventually went on to become the healthiest and happiest generation in human history, all while living a life of indulgence instead of deprivation. After all, there's nothing about counting calories or points on pyramid walls, is there? Cavemen didn't do burpees, and I didn't see anything about low carb or keto in the Bible. And I think we can both agree that yesterday's aesthetic icons all chose wine and cheesecake over boiled broccoli and chicken breast, right? Fast forward to today, and this cellular software is the same reason that needle on the scale never climbs for that friend of yours who gets to eat whatever they want, or why those lucky moms soar back to their pre-baby weight in a matter of weeks without stepping in a gym or counting a single calorie. It's how that one family member of yours never gets sick, and it's the fuel for all centenarians living their 100+ year lives. That program, although it's been referred to as the Swiss Army knife of weight loss and immunity, and even though geneticists and heart specialists and oncologists refer to it as the holy grail of longevity, biologists simply call it autophagy. An evolution-tested cellular survival software buried deep inside each one of your 4 billion cells that's hardwired to defend against disease and automated to swiftly yet safely propel you towards your healthiest weight. A breakthrough discovery so essential to life as we know it that autophagy won its first of 2 Nobel Prizes back in '47, serving as the evolution-tested and unshakable foundation for thousands upon thousands of medical and scientific breakthroughs over the next 80 years. See, it all makes sense when you think about it. Every biological system and each metabolic and immunity-related task happening inside your body right now is built to take care of itself. They're self-maintaining because, well, because they have to be. We don't have troubleshooters, maintenance workers, or mechanics that can take a look under the hood to make sure everything's running smoothly in there. Sure, doctors take care of us when we're sick, but even they're working blind from the outside, right? So for life as we know it to sustain itself, autophagy's got to be activated within the cell on a daily basis. Essentially, roll out of bed, put on its little hard hat, strap on its tool belt, and get out there to perform automatic maintenance on our vital organs and tissues. Every single day, autophagy is supposed to set the gauge that locks us into our healthiest weight while upholding the highest biological standard of immunity by virtually clipping away the dead or dying cells that hoard fatty tissue and invite disease. In fact, the power of autophagy, what it's truly capable of, becomes crystal clear when you take a look at men and women living back in the 1950s and 60s who, according to every worldwide census on record, were the healthiest, happiest, most skinny gifted, and as the numbers show, pretty much disease-proof generation in the history of mankind. Living smack dab in the middle of the fast food revolution, consuming double the carbs we do, these guys walked around with slender, athletic bodies that weighed on average 76 pounds less than ours. They bought twice as much sugar and ate 3 times the red meat we do, but diabetes and obesity barely existed. And I know it seems shocking, but it's not really, because autophagy knows that fat cells are quite literally biological sponges for disease, so it's supposed to go to work on a second-by-second basis to drastically shrink or eliminate them altogether, making room for stronger, newer cells who force a firewall of immunity, while at the same time building cellular roadblocks designed to stop the threat of rebound weight gain in its tracks. What's actually shocking is the potency of their pesticides in the 50s and 60s was actually 11 times more lethal than today's. Most of them smoked and they drank twice as much. Yet their chances of cancer, dementia, and early death was a fraction of what you're faced with, because when autophagy is running at its highest capacity, it's expertly pruning away the cancer, dementia, and diabetes-provoking pathogens that disable the cell, then actually recycling the debris as a clean and almost unlimited energy source for your cell's power center, the mitochondria. Powerful stuff, right? Now, the only thing was, under a mid-20th century microscope, scientists couldn't figure out what actually triggered autophagy. They didn't know how or what activated it. So at that point, they could only determine that autophagy simply existed and that it was thriving in all of them. And that if autophagy was working, so were they. And you know what they say? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But then suddenly, somehow, we broke. In fact, you can actually pinpoint right here where after taking 400,000 years of evolution to become the most bulletproof generation on record, after autophagy had evolved to take on almost any threat we could throw at it and more, we all suddenly found ourselves surrounded by almost 80 more pounds of fat, living the most disease-infested and illness-plagued era in human history.
Why are some people obese and others not?
Interestingly enough, you can also pinpoint where one non-existent industry, one that in fact didn't exist because it wasn't needed for those 400,000 years, found a way to become the fastest growing cartel in human history. And really, it wasn't that hard. See, by slowly perfecting their seductive sales schemes over the last 5 decades, they strategically managed to convince us that our health, our happiness, somehow depends on you looking like this, or now somehow this. Yet while we're blindfolded by short-lived victories on the scale, a look under the microscope shows these tactics that look like this, and this, essentially weaponize weight loss schemes and eating methodologies that are completely foreign to your cells, inflicting permanent cellular damage mimicking the same inflammatory response as rattlesnake venom, crippling not only your ability to maintain your weight, but terminating autophagy's ability to fight when you need it most. Which is no wonder why 9 out of every 10 North Americans are sitting ducks for obesity and disease, because really, in the grand scheme of things, it's still the Wild West in terms of what these snake oil salesmen and industry leaders can say, claim, and do. So they can say just about anything they want to get you to open your wallet, towing the line between what's legal and what's unethical. And still, there's no FDA regulations that forces your low-cal, point-counting, ab-rolling guru to inform you about the long-term effects that not only dismantle autophagy, but connects their road to riches with your road to stuff like osteoporosis, diabetes, arthritis, dementia, and cardiac arrhythmia. I could go on for days, but I won't. And you're gonna be rewarded for the time you've given me right now. But the truth is, the overwhelming burden of proof spanning decades has now clinically convicted these designer-engineered schemes. Ironically, though, it's you, me, and my sister who are sentenced to a life of plus size, emotional decay, disease, and in a lot of cases, early death. Which is why it seems weird to say now, but Mary was one of the lucky ones. Because unlike the 330,000 American mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters who died from obesity-related diseases last year alone, my sister actually got to leave the hospital. And when she did, the doc gave her a grim sort of gift bag that reminded her of her own mortality on a daily basis, including a new multicolored cocktail of medications, a glucose meter to manage her official diagnosis as pre-diabetic, along with a walker to replace her cane and, well, I guess essentially what remained of her confidence. I'll tell you, it killed me to see my sister this way. As a highly respected botanist, Mary's reputation rose quickly as one of the planet's foremost plant scientists. Back then, it wasn't odd to receive Mary's calls from a satellite phone studying some exotic plant after spending 2 days climbing up the side of a mountain. Yet now, it seemed like it took her just as long to climb the stairs. So the truth is, I was worried and I missed the girls desperately, so we scheduled our first face-to-face video call that evening. Before calling, I had a quick look at Mary's Facebook to see what I had missed over the last 6 weeks. The most recent post featured a video of some other woman dancing with my eldest niece, with the youngest one on her shoulders. I just figured it was one of the friends who had been coming by to help out. Yet when I pushed play, I was stunned. I realized that other woman was my sister. It had only been just over a month, maybe 6 weeks, but she must have been 20, maybe 30 pounds lighter, looking and dancing around like she was a couple decades younger as well. Moments later, I was greeted by Mary, sipping on a glass of wine between bites of pizza. And while it was clear her hospital-prescribed diet, or any diet for that matter, had found its way into the garbage, Mary had informed me that 4 of the 5 medications she had been choking back on a daily basis had made their way into the trash as well. It was also clear that at 8 p.m. her time, she wasn't getting ready for bed either. Hey, why are you all dolled up?
Mommy's going on a date.
A date? What do you mean? Wait, step back. That's the dress you wore to my wedding.
You better believe it, it's a size 6. I haven't worn anything smaller than a size 14 in years.
The cloud of depression and anxiety that relentlessly stalked her for the last decade, well, it had vanished, and I realized now I was looking into the eyes of what appeared to be the upgraded, new and improved version of the sister I thought I'd lost in our 20s. And although it was clear to me that I was looking at a brand new woman on the outside, follow-up tests revealed Mary 2.0's pre-diabetic blood sugar levels were flawless and that her thyroid had finally gone back to work. Echocardiograms and blood samples pointed to pristine arteries and perfect blood pressure, all powered by a heart that, according to her doctor, beat with monk-like serenity. Now, if we can just pause for a second here, I've promised and delivered truth and transparency since we first met. And even though Mary's only moments away from revealing the true secret, and like I said before, almost annoyingly simple solution that immediately induced the first stage of my sister's transformation. Oh yeah, so that's the other thing. Mary was actually just getting started. In the 3 months that followed, while indulging in her favorite foods without a single plateau, craving or setback, or even a second in the gym, Mary eliminated each and every prescription while incinerating another 48 pounds of fat. I was so happy for her, and I'll tell you, like you, I'm sure I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't have seen it with my own two eyes, but I finally got my sister back. All of us had. All right, so like, what's going on? How are you doing this? How is it even happening?
Well, after they gave Dr. Osumi the Nobel Prize for figuring out how to trigger autophagy on demand, it all began to make perfect sense.
See, growing up, I had always referred to my sis as Nerd Supreme. From the age of 10, she knew she wanted to be a scientist. I mean, 16 years ago, while the world gathered around their TVs to watch the finale of Friends, I remember Mary was home watching the latest lecture from another esteemed plant biologist from the other side of the world. Which is no wonder why she eventually earned her degree in botany, going on to become one of the world's most sought-after plant scientists. However, this year, from her hospital bed, Mary watched from her phone as the real-life fountain of youth won its second Nobel Prize. Yet this time, world-renowned cell biologist Dr. Yoshi Ozumi and his team had figured out exactly how to trigger autophagy. They had figured out how to activate it on demand. Now, I won't get too sciencey on you, but Dr. Osumi and his team discovered the exact pathways that needed to be lit up in order to activate autophagy on demand. And subsequent testing showed that by consuming specific doses of an extremely rare class of all-natural bioceuticals in the right order, that even the most shattered metabolism at any age had the power to trigger autophagy, unleash your body's all-natural pull towards your healthiest weight, and quickly reinvigorate your immune system to its most youthful levels. And when my botanist sister, the family plant scientist, told me these autophagy-rich bioceuticals only choose to grow in the richest soils in the world, almost exclusively in the planet's 5 blue zones, it all began to make perfect sense.